So this body is spread out. You can see, that's what the gap should be. That's what the gap is. Again, gap should be, gap is. You can see this top side spread out a bit as well. These have come apart, which they were originally like a close seam together. These all have a ton of surface rust, but very little depth to it. And maybe a little bit here that has depth. Over here, it does actually have a few pinholes. There's one there and one there. So I might have to replace some of this metal here. It's gonna be fun. The hinges, oh yes, they're nice and free. They include part of the top, which is up here. No idea what those holes are for. I think that was something else. But yeah, you can see that is the hole where this came from, and that's on both sides. So I'm gonna have to take all that apart. I'm gonna see if I can do a reinforcement strip that goes the entire length or width of the door, so all the way across to here, so that it's good and strong, and I don't have to worry about that happening again. It was actually kind of funny because I came in, into the forest looking at this. See that latch up there? There's a bungee cord from this strap and this strap going around the latch, which is approximately here, holding that back window in place. It's kind of funny. So there are these attachment points, latches, for the tailgate and for the upper part of the tailgate, the window, the back window, on both sides. And as you can see, they're Phillips and beat up. The beating up is from me. The rusting is not. They're rusted in place. Tried with the impact driver on all of them, all 4 of them, all 8 screws, and they ain't moving. They ain't budging. Not a one of them. And as you can see, that attempting has damaged the Phillips part. The only way I found that I can get in there and actually get them apart is this method. No, she's helping with something else, but not that. Anyway, welding on a bolt to the head of the screw and extracting it that way. And it works. This is, back in focus, there you are. That's screw number 1. There's enough of a weld, and it's a booger weld, an ugly weld, as you can see, but it attaches. So then I can extract it. My helper handing me tools. It's extracting the screw. Man, you can feel the resistance that this thing has. So that's how I'm getting them out. Nice little welder here for that. I'm gonna have to do that pretty much 8 times, I'm guessing. None of these guys are moving. I've even used a handy little torch to try and bake them out. I've gotten them behind them to soak them with WD-40. Not a one of them causes them to move. So, yeah. Lots of fun. With a helper. She's not around for the welding. Don't worry about that. I'm not killing her eyesight. She's playing in the yard. But, yeah. All kinds of fun. One final note on this, which I'm going to grab a glove for. That's a loose plate back there. This thing attaches to a loose plate there. That grounding clamp did not do a thing. I actually had to ground onto this guy holding the bolt and weld. So yeah, sketchy, but it worked. So that's the bolt or screw extracted. Yeah, focus that way. It's got some kind of lock washer on there. So it's a countersunk Phillips screw with a lock washer, and not a self-tapping, but like that kind of end on it. So really in there good. And you notice the long lead, long MIG wire. So that was me finding out that because of the rust, there was no electrical connection between this screw and the body. So I had the clamp, well, not on the body actually. Yes, on the body. I had the, right there, that was my clamping point. And there was no electrical connection. So I was sitting there, stuff was feeding out, nothing was happening, no sparky, no nothing, no fun. So that's when I had to switch the grounding clamp on the pliers holding the bolts that I'm welding on. I was not happy with that. Anyway, I'm leaving that nut in there. That's kind of holding that plate in place, because I'm going to be using that plate and that bolt and the bolts holding this piece on, or the tailgate axle pivot on, to hold together the back of the Scout. I'm going to have pieces welded to there, or plates bolted in, beams welded into those plates, and those beams crossing back and forth across, holding this back end together. That's going to be an interesting thing. As you can see, there's a measurement here written 53 3/4. That's my best measurement as to how far these sides have to be, or how close these sides have to be to engage both the latches that I've now removed. There, over there. I'll be doing some more measurements to make sure of that, but that's my best guess as to what this needs to be apart. It's currently something around 55 inches. There's a pretty good gap in there. For the most part, this back end is not too bad. There's like a bit of surface rust here and there. For the most part, not bad. Until you get under here. This whole bottom like portion here is gone. Gone. Which unfortunately the latch is part of that, part of in there, so the latch is pretty much a solid block of rust. And it gets down, you can see, to normal metal just below that. So this portion destroyed, you can see through it and through the inside layer. This portion okay, sides okay, top mostly okay, and the rest of this thing I can patch up with just like cleaning up and maybe a little bit of Bondo to make it smooth. That portion there I'm gonna have to replace completely because it's not there anymore. The reason for that, best I can figure out, is insulation. There was some kind of insulation. It almost looks like animal fur. Could be animal fur, considering what else has been in this thing. That was stuffed all in this top member, from one end to the other, completely full of that. It's wet. It's still wet. It's been in the garage for 2 weeks and it's still wet. That stuff absorbed moisture like a sponge, held onto it, and rusted. Yeah, there. You can see all the way through to the floor there, there. So not only is this side rusted through there, but this side is rusted through there. So that's telling you how bad it is. It's just Swiss cheese. It's gone. It's Houdini. It's gone. Anyway, the rest of this metal, fine. Fine. A little bit of rust to clean up. A little bit of rust to clean up. Nothing a wire wheel and some rust reformer can't handle. This portion here, this top portion, gone. I don't want to lose this bumper, so I'm going to replace that. I have no idea. I'm probably just going to have to replace the latch. The latch itself is just worthless. But yeah. So I had to open up this plate, open up the plates at each end. One that goes in here, and one that my helper is currently working on in here. And you can see all the way through. And all the way through. And vacuum and extract and whatnot I could, as much of it as I could. Still some hanging on there. I'm gonna have to, I'm not 100% finished. But yeah, that's what I had to do to get to this point. I probably took like 10 pounds off this tailgate. Now I'll have to finish that, get it really cleaned, and then start welding in, grinding out and welding in, cutting out, welding in all the bad rust. And you know, this part, there's a lot of the stuff that's not terrible. This kind of, this upper area here seems good, mainly because it's above where the water would be collecting. So I'm probably going to be, you know, cutting in like here down to this seam, splitting this seam out, welding an entirely new panel, doing the same thing over here, splitting that seam, cutting it about here, welding an entirely new panel, flipping this thing over and doing the same thing to this surface here. That, yeah, I don't know. I'll basically do that all the way around this top section, but that's going to be another day. For now, I got it so it's not going to be rusting too much more. It's just like whatever moisture is exposed to it, not, or humidity, not that insulation causing it to rust. And I still got to get those bolts off so I can get this thing together so I can start really working on this. I've gotten this cleaned up. That's going to be bracket number 1. That's going to be the counterpart over there. Interesting note, that one, the door latch bracket is free, or is loose, whereas this one, it's tight. So I'm guessing that there's like a spot weld maybe right there that holds it in place, and the other one rusted free. Not a huge deal, but it does mean that my placement's going to be off a little bit, or different. I think I'm going to figure out that spot weld later. Yeah. So my plan right now is to bracket this. I have one piece that goes all the way across. I think this is actually a better gap because I've got 1x1 bar, or not 1x1 steel tube, and this gap is more than an inch. This gap is just about an inch. So if I go for this gap, then there should be plenty of room for the bolts, and this will be free. If I really want to, I can build like a brace, like, you know, tack a brace going across or something like that.